The explosion didn't just shake the ship, it rewrote the future. A human stepped into a death wave to save an alien child, and woke up to see an entire army kneeling like he was some kind of legend. Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It seriously helps the channel. The neutral station Kestrel Gate drifted between two hostile territories like a coin balanced on a blade. It was built for diplomacy, clean white halls, soft lighting, and security so strict even a whisper felt inspected. Jalen Ma, a human systems patcher, wasn't supposed to be anywhere near history. He was a contractor, fixing broken doors, recalibrating air scrubbers, and updating old station software that nobody cared about until it failed. He wore a plain grey tool jacket and carried a battered kit full of cables, clamps, and cheap multitools. The Peace Summit on Kestrel Gate had brought in the Sorinth, an alien species known for discipline and cold logic. Their bodies were tall and narrow, their skin like dark glass with faint lines that glowed when they spoke. Their soldiers moved like machines, and their leaders spoke like judges. Humans had fought them for 7 years. Not because humans wanted war, because humans refused to be pushed off frontier worlds like trash. Now both sides were trying to stop the bleeding. But extremists existed everywhere. Jalen found that out when the station's internal speakers screamed. Emergency lockdown. Sector 9 breach. Internal threat detected. The lights switched to red. Heavy blast doors slammed shut. The station trembled as if something deep inside it had coughed fire. Jalen was in Sector 9 maintenance, kneeling by an open panel, cursing a power relay that always overheated. His screen flashed warnings. The air smelled sharp, like burnt metal and something worse. He stood up fast. Then the second shock hit. A low boom rolled through the floor, followed by a rattling clang that made tools jump inside drawers. Smoke curled from ceiling vents. Jalen didn't wait for instructions. He grabbed his kit and ran. The main corridor was half-lit and chaotic, station staff sprinting, alarms blaring, and security drones hovering with their lights flashing. Far down the hall, he saw Sorinth soldiers moving in tight formation, their rifles angled down but ready. Then he heard a sound that didn't belong in a war zone. A small, trembling cry. Jalen slowed. The cry came from a side passage marked Diplomatic Family Quarters. His brain tried to argue. Not your job. His feet ignored him. He turned into the passage. The hallway was quieter here, but the quiet was wrong, like the station was holding its breath. A blast door stood half-closed at the end, stuck mid-drop. Sparks rained from a broken control box. Heat shimmered in the air. And there, on the floor, sat a Sorinth child. She was small, folded into herself, her dark glass skin streaked with pale dust. The glowing lines on her arms flickered weakly like dying stars. She clutched a soft cloth toy, some kind of simple stuffed creature with uneven stitching. Her eyes were too big, too bright, and full of terror. Behind her, near the door mechanism, something blinked a harsh blue. Jalen froze as his mind recognized the shape. A phase core charge. Military grade. Not the kind that accidentally ends up in a neutral station. It was a compact cylinder with cracked shielding, humming as if it was angry. Its countdown was not a normal timer, just rising energy pulses, faster and faster, like a heartbeat sprinting toward failure. Jalen's mouth went dry. If that charge detonated, it wouldn't just burn the hallway. It would tear the station's gravity lattice in this sector, rip open the hull, and vent everything into space. The child was trapped between a stuck blast door and a locked inner seal. The only other path was already burning. Jalen could see flames licking from a conduit breach. The child saw him. Her body flinched hard. She pressed herself back against the wall, gripping her toy like it was armor. To her, he was the enemy. A human. A species her people feared. Jalen raised both hands slowly, palms out. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Her eyes stayed on him, wide and wet. Jalen stepped closer, glancing again at the charge. The pulses were accelerating. He looked at the blast door control panel. It was fried. He pried it open anyway, hands moving fast. Wires were melted together. The manual crank was jammed. The mechanism had been sabotaged. Someone wanted this corridor sealed. Jalen's mind sprinted through options. No time to disarm. No time to lift the door. No safe route out. His chest tightened. A human instinct screamed, "Run." Then the child whimpered, a tiny sound that didn't accuse him, didn't hate him, only begged the universe not to end. Jalen remembered his little brother back on Earth, how he used to hide behind Jalen's legs during thunderstorms. How the world felt safer when someone bigger stood in front of you. He looked at his toolkit. Inside, it was a portable field clamp, a device meant to stabilize microreactors during repairs. It could create a short-lived directional barrier, but only for seconds, and only if anchored properly. Not enough to stop a phase core blast. Unless he used the station itself. Jalen moved fast. He yanked a metal maintenance plate from the wall, slammed the field clamp onto it, and attached power leads from his kit battery. He was sweating now, fingers shaking as he connected clamps to the plate's edges. He wasn't building a shield. He was building a reflector, a crude, desperate shape meant to redirect the first wave. He looked at the child and pointed behind him. He gestured low, like a parent guiding a frightened kid under a table. The child stared, confused. Jalen crouched close, forcing his voice calm. "Hey, it's okay. I'm right here." The charged pulses became a scream of light. No more time. Jalen placed himself between the charge and the child. He angled the plate, braced it with his body, and powered the clamp. The barrier flickered to life, thin, unstable, buzzing like a knife edge. His arms locked. His jaw clenched. He glanced back once. The phase core charge cracked open like an egg of blue fire. Jalen didn't think about medals. He didn't think about treaties. He thought only, please, let her live. The blast hit. It felt like the universe punched him. Light swallowed everything. Sound vanished. Jalen's world became heat, pressure, and a final, strange calm, like the moment before waves crash onto shore. Then darkness took him. Jalen woke to quiet. Not the quiet of peace, the careful quiet of a hospital, where even footsteps respect pain. He tried to inhale and felt his chest protest. A sharp ache ran through his ribs. His eyes opened slowly, blinking at soft white lights above him. He wasn't in Kestrel Gate's red emergency glow anymore. He was in a medical ward. Machines hummed. Monitors ticked. The air smelled clean, sterile and cold. Jalen turned his head and froze. Along the far side of the room stood a line of Sorinth soldiers. Dozens of them. Not in combat stance. Not aiming weapons. They were on one knee. Heads lowered. Hands pressed to their chests in a gesture that looked almost sacred. For a second, Jalen thought he was hallucinating. Then a human doctor leaned into view. Her name badge read Dr. Amira Voss. Her eyes looked tired but bright with relief. "Easy," she said softly. "Don't try to move too fast." Jalen's throat scraped as he spoke. "The child." Dr. Voss smiled. "She survived. Not a scratch." Jalen's eyes stung. He let out a breath that felt like it carried a year of fear out with it. "Good," he whispered. "Good." He looked again at the kneeling soldiers. "Why are they doing that?" Dr. Voss hesitated, as if the answer still felt unreal. "They're performing a Sorinth rite," she said. "It's called the bend of witness. They do it when someone commits an act so honorable that it changes how they understand the universe." Jalen swallowed. "I'm just a contractor." "You stepped into a phase core detonation," she said. "To save a child that wasn't yours. A child from a species we've been fighting." He tried to sit up. His body refused. "How long?" he rasped. 2 days unconscious," Dr. Voss replied. "Your field clamp and the metal plate, it redirected the first wave. Security teams broke through the jammed blast door right after. They found you barely alive." Jalen stared at the ceiling, trying to understand how he was alive at all. Then movement near the ward entrance drew his attention. The kneeling soldiers parted smoothly, forming a path. A Sorinth officer entered, taller than the rest, his glowing lines brighter, arranged in patterns that marked rank. His armor was ceremonial, not battle-worn. He carried no weapon. Beside him walked the child. She held his hand like a lifeline. Her eyes fixed on Jalen, and the glowing lines on her arms brightened as if her body was trying to speak without words. The officer approached the bed and lowered himself to one knee, slowly, deliberately, like it mattered. When he spoke, his voice was calm but full of weight. "Human Jalen Ma," he said in accented English. "I am Commander Silath Arun, guardian of diplomatic security for Kestrel Gate. This child is Luma. She is the one you protected." Luma stepped forward. Her hands trembled. She held out her small cloth toy toward Jalen, offering it like a gift of priceless value. Jalen's heart squeezed. He lifted a shaky hand and gently touched the toy's uneven stitching. Luma made a soft sound, half sob, half laugh. Commander Arun continued. "You did what our doctrine claims is irrational. You sacrificed your survival probability to protect a non-kin life." He paused, and the glowing lines on his face pulsed slowly, like breath. "In our culture," Arun said, "a soldier kneels only to truth. Today we kneel because you revealed truth, that humans are not driven only by aggression." Jalen's mind flicked back to the sabotage. Who planted the charge? Arun's expression sharpened. Extremists. From both sides. Dr. Voss stepped closer. "They wanted the summit to fail," she said. "They wanted proof that peace is impossible." Arun looked at Jalen. They expected fear. They expected hatred. His voice turned quiet. They did not expect a human to become a shield. Jalen's eyes drifted to Luma. He remembered her frightened cry. He remembered choosing without thinking. And suddenly he understood the real danger. The extremists didn't just try to kill a child. They tried to kill an idea. Commander Arun's gaze stayed steady. "Your act has already spread across every feed line. Human civilians and Sorinth citizens are watching the same footage. They see the same moment." Dr. Voss nodded. "The summit didn't collapse," she said. "It transformed." Jalen blinked, confused. "How?" Arun answered. "Because courage is contagious." He lifted his head slightly, eyes intense. Many Sorinth now question the war. They ask, if a human can protect our young, what else have we misunderstood? Jalen let that sink in. He felt small in the bed, wrapped in bandages, unable to lift his arms properly. Yet the room was full of kneeling soldiers, treating him like a symbol. He didn't want to be a symbol. But maybe symbols were how wars ended. Luma moved closer to the bed, standing on her toes. She whispered something in her language, soft, trembling, sincere. Commander Arun translated slowly. She says, "You stood where the fire lived. So I could keep living." Jalen's throat tightened. He didn't have the right words. So he did the only thing he could. He gave her a gentle smile. And Luma smiled back, small, shy, but real. Outside the ward, the universe still held weapons. But inside, something had shifted. Not a treaty yet. Not peace yet. But a crack in the old hatred. And through cracks, light gets in. Kestrel Gate did not survive the sabotage. Not fully. Sector 9 had been torn open. The station's orbit had destabilized. Emergency tugs had hauled the wreck away from the border, but half the station was now a haunted shell of twisted metal. In the aftermath, both governments accused each other. Old instincts woke up fast. War almost resumed in a single day. The extremists celebrated, quietly, invisibly. But humans had a habit the galaxy never understood. When humans were pushed into a corner, they didn't only fight. They invented. Jalen learned this while still recovering. Dr. Voss wheeled his bed near a viewing window. Beyond it floated the wreck of Kestrel Gate, surrounded by repair drones like bees around a broken hive. Commander Arun visited daily. Not to threaten. To listen. The Sorinth were famous for power and precision, but they had one weakness. They trusted systems too much. They believed control meant safety. Humans didn't believe in safety. Humans believed in improvisation. Jalen's hands were still weak, but his mind was sharp. He asked for a tablet, pulled up station schematics, and stared at the sabotage pattern. This wasn't random, he murmured. Dr. Voss looked over his shoulder. What do you see? Jalen tapped the map. They hit power relays to force lockdown. They jammed blast doors to trap civilians. The charge was placed exactly where rescue would be delayed. Arun's glowing lines shifted, focused. Jalen continued. But they also needed something else. What? Arun asked. Jalen's eyes narrowed. They needed the blame to stick. They needed everyone to believe the other side did it. Dr. Voss frowned. How do you prove they didn't? Jalen smiled faintly. You don't prove innocence first. You prove a third hand. He requested access to the station's sensor logs. Security refused. So Jalen did what humans always did when doors stayed locked. He went around them. He asked a maintenance AI for thermal diagnostics. The AI gave it, because it wasn't classified. Jalen combined thermal diagnostics with power fluctuation records, then cross-referenced those with drone flight patterns. None of these were flagged as security data. Individually, harmless. Together, a confession. Jalen found it. A pattern of microheat signatures, tiny, like insects crawling through vents, moving against station rules, avoiding cameras, placing devices at key points. Not human. Not Sorinth. A third party. Arun stared at the evidence on the screen. This movement is too small for soldiers. Jalen nodded. Because it wasn't soldiers. It was micro-saboteurs. Swarm bots. Dr. Voss's face went pale. Who has that tech? Jalen leaned back, wincing. A lot of people. But only one group would risk it here. Arun's voice tightened. The Kerem Syndicate. They were smugglers, pirates, and war profiteers who made money selling weapons to both sides. Peace would destroy their business. The room went quiet. Then Arun asked the question that mattered most. Can you prove it publicly? Jalen exhaled. Yes. But not with normal evidence. He looked at Arun. The Sorinth trust systems. Humans trust stories. Arun didn't understand. So Jalen explained a human idea older than spaceflight. A courtroom isn't just facts, he said. It's narrative. People believe what they can follow. He built a visual reconstruction from the harmless logs. He created a simple animated timeline, the swarm bots moving, the doors sealing, the charge placed. He added timestamps and highlighted how both human and Sorinth personnel were elsewhere. Then he did the most human thing possible. He uploaded it everywhere. Not through official channels. Through public ones. In hours, the feeds lit up. People watched it on ships, in cities, in barracks. Human and Sorinth alike. It was clear. The sabotage wasn't an accident. It wasn't the enemy. It was someone profiting off their hatred. Suddenly, extremists on both sides had a problem. Their lies were no longer the loudest voice. The next day, the summit leaders demanded a joint task force to hunt the syndicate. Humans and Sorinth soldiers, side by side, raided a smuggling depot on a dead moon. They found swarmbot manufacturing. They found phase core charges. They found payment trails. War profiteers screamed innocence until the evidence choked them. And across the galaxy, ordinary people started saying something new. Maybe the enemy isn't them. Maybe it's the ones who want us to keep fighting. Jalen's body healed slowly. But the real healing was happening out there, in public belief. Then the syndicate struck back. Not with bombs. With a message. A transmission hijacked every feed line for 10 seconds. A distorted voice said, "Peace will cost you more than war." And then, coordinates. A location. A shipyard. And a countdown. Dr. Voss watched Jalen's face as he read it. That's a threat, she said. Jalen swallowed. It's an invitation, he said quietly. They're daring us to come. Commander Arun's glowing lines flared. They plan to kill many. Jalen's eyes hardened. Then we don't go as armies, he said. He smiled, thin, human, stubborn. We go as engineers. The shipyard hung above a barren planet like a metal storm cloud. It was an old syndicate facility, half legal and half secret. Cargo ships docked there, hauled away, returned with new names. It smelled like stolen fuel and quiet greed. The countdown said 6 hours. Human commanders wanted warships. Sorinth commanders wanted precision strikes. Jalen wanted something else. He sat in a briefing room, still pale, still recovering, but speaking like someone who had already decided. They're expecting force, he said. They've built their whole life around predicting violence. A human officer scoffed. So what? We bring more violence. Jalen shook his head. That's what they want. Commander Arun stood beside him, silent but watching. Jalen pulled up the shipyard structural plans, public records, old and ignored. This place runs on a single industrial power spine. It feeds everything. If we hit it the wrong way, we'll ignite the fuel cells and kill everyone inside. Dr. Voss's voice was tight. Including hostages. Jalen nodded. Yes. They won't just have hostages. They'll have families. They'll have workers who don't even know what they're part of. The room went still. Jalen continued. We don't break the spine. We freeze it. Arun tilted his head. Explain. Jalen pointed at a section of the plan. This shipyard uses thermal regulation to keep reactors stable. If we overload the regulation loop with a harmless command storm, thousands of false temperature alerts, the system will trigger an automatic safety shutdown. A human officer frowned. That's hacking. Jalen shrugged. It's maintenance. He looked at Arun. Can your people generate that command storm? Arun answered without hesitation. Yes. Our signal discipline is absolute. Jalen smiled. Good. Humans will do the other half. He opened his kit, still the same battered kit, and pulled out a small device. A cheap radio. A piece of junk to aliens. To shut down the yard, he said, we need a physical anchor point. A signal injector. The officers stared. Jalen spoke calmly. Someone has to go in. Dr. Voss's eyes widened. Jalen, no. He met her gaze. I'm not going to die. I'm going to do my job. Arun's glowing lines dimmed, as if the idea tasted bitter. You are still injured. Jalen nodded. And the syndicate will underestimate me because of it. He leaned forward. They expect soldiers. They expect threats. They expect speeches. But a guy with a toolkit. He smiled again. That's invisible. The plan was approved. Barely. Jalen entered the shipyard disguised as a low-level repair contractor. His fake badge scanned. His toolkit passed inspection because no one cared about tools. He walked through corridors of metal and noise, past workers in worn uniforms, past syndicate guards laughing at jokes too cruel to repeat. He found the power spine access room. A locked panel. He didn't force it. He simply waited until a worker opened it, then slipped inside behind them like a shadow. Inside, the air vibrated with energy. Pipes glowed faintly. Control nodes blinked in steady rhythm. Jalen moved quickly. He attached the signal injector, his junk radio, to a maintenance port and set it to broadcast a specific pattern. Outside, Commander Arun and human signal techs watched from a covert ship. A storm ready, Arun reported. Jalen's earpiece crackled. Dr. Voss's voice came through, quiet and shaking. Be careful. Jalen whispered back, always. Then the storm hit. Thousands of false thermal alerts flooded the shipyard systems. The regulation AI panicked, as designed, and initiated safety shutdowns. Reactors dimmed. Lights flickered. Gravity stabilized, then softened. The whole yard went from roaring beast to sleeping giant. Syndicate guards yelled orders. Systems didn't respond. Their weapons relied on powered rails. Many failed. Jalen slipped out, blending with frightened workers. Then a syndicate officer spotted him. "You!" the officer shouted. "Stop!" Jalen ran. He didn't run like a soldier. He ran like a human who'd spent his life fixing broken things and surviving on stubbornness. He turned a corner and found a dead end. A blast door jammed. History tried to repeat itself. The officer raised a weapon. Jalen's mind moved faster than fear. Above the door was a manual maintenance lever. He grabbed it and yanked. The door dropped suddenly, not open, not closed, but halfway, and clipped the officer's weapon arm. The gun clattered away. Jalen didn't hesitate. He slammed the lever again. The door came down fully, pinning the officer's armor to the floor without killing him. Jalen stumbled back, breathing hard, half laughing in disbelief. "Maintenance," he whispered. Security teams arrived moments later. Human and Sorinth together. They swept the yard. They freed hostages. They arrested syndicate leaders. And the final broadcast, the syndicate's threat, became the syndicate's funeral. Because humans didn't answer with rage. Humans answered with a wrench and a clever plan. When the operation ended, Commander Arun looked at Jalen with a strange expression. Not pity. Not awe. Something deeper. "Your people," Arun said quietly, "are chaos." Jalen wiped sweat from his brow. "Yeah." Arun continued. "But you turn chaos into purpose." Jalen looked out at the yard, now safe. "That's the trick," he said. The peace treaty wasn't signed because leaders suddenly became kind. It was signed because ordinary people, human and Sorinth, saw proof that the old story was wrong. The old story said, they are monsters. But monsters didn't kneel beside hospital beds. Monsters didn't rescue each other from burning corridors. Monsters didn't shut down a shipyard to save hostages instead of bombing it into dust. Weeks later, Jalen stood in a wide ceremonial hall on a Sorinth flagship. He wore a simple suit that didn't fit perfectly because he was still healing. His scars itched under fabric. His ribs still complained when he breathed too deep. But he stood straight anyway. Because humans did that. Across from him stood rows of Sorinth soldiers in formal armor. Their glowing lines pulsed in unison like a calm heartbeat. Luma stood near the front, holding her cloth toy. She watched Jalen like she was watching a sunrise. Commander Arun stepped forward. "Today," Arun said, "the Sorinth acknowledge a human truth." The hall fell silent. Arun lifted a metal token, small and simple. It was shaped like a bend in a line, like a knee lowering. "This symbol," Arun said, "marks the bend of witness. It is given only when an act forces our species to rethink honor." He approached Jalen and placed the token in his hand. Then Arun did something that made gasps ripple through even the Sorinth ranks. He knelt. Not because he was forced. Not because of tradition alone. But because he meant it. One by one, every soldier followed. A human stood at the center of an alien war culture. And the strongest army in that region of space knelt. Jalen's chest tightened. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a tired repair guy who once heard a child cry and didn't walk away. Luma stepped forward. She spoke softly, her voice small but clear. Arun translated with care. She says, "When I was afraid, you became a wall. So now I will become a light." Jalen crouched to meet her eye level. "You already are," he said gently. Luma didn't understand the words, but she understood the kindness. She pressed the cloth toy into his hands again. This time, Jalen accepted it fully. The hall watched, and something in the air changed. Because this wasn't just a ceremony. It was a new story. A story where humans weren't the reckless species who fought too hard. They were the species who built bridges out of scrap metal and turned fear into teamwork. Later, Dr. Voss found Jalen staring out a viewport at the stars. "You okay?" she asked. Jalen nodded slowly. "I keep thinking. I almost died in a hallway. And instead, she said, you helped stop a war. Jalen smiled faintly. Not me. People did. I just started a chain reaction. Dr. Voss leaned on the rail beside him. That's what humans do, isn't it? Jalen looked at the stars like they were problems waiting to be solved. We get hit, he said. We break. We bleed. He paused. Then we figure it out. Commander Arun approached quietly. The syndicate remnants have scattered, he said. Trade lanes reopen. Refugees return. Jalen nodded. Arun's glowing lines pulsed softly. There will be more threats. More extremists. Jalen turned. His voice stayed calm. Then we'll keep building better answers. Arun studied him. Why? Why do humans persist? Jalen thought of Earth. Of crowded streets and old music. Of broken machines that still ran because someone refused to give up. He answered simply. Because we don't know how to stop. He looked at Luma playing nearby, safe in a room full of former enemies. And because kids deserve a future, he said. Even if it's not our species. Commander Arun bowed his head, just slightly, less than a kneel, but still a sign of respect. And in that moment, it wasn't a human and an alien. It was two beings admitting the same truth. Strength isn't just winning fights. Sometimes, strength is standing between a child and the explosion, and waking up to a galaxy that finally wants to kneel to something better. The end.